Hey guys, what's up? Tom here today with a question for you. Do bike lanes suck? And more specifically, I'll be more specific, sure. Do painted bike lanes suck? And even more specifically, do painted bike lanes, you know that stripe on the road that delineates a bike lane, do those types of bike lanes suck worse than having nothing at all? Why this question? For two reasons. One was I was at a conference recently and I saw a presentation by Dr. Jennifer Dill, who is this well-known researcher into safe cycling from Portland State University. And she presented some interesting information. One of the things they did was looking at the perceptions of safety among people who ride bikes. So they asked a bunch of people who ride bikes, which kind of bike infrastructure do they feel most safe? And what came out really low among all these different types of infrastructure was a painted bike lane, which struck me as bizarre. Painted bike lanes are supposed to help cyclists, right? That's why they are invented. That's why they exist. And so to see this as one of the more unsafe types of bike infrastructure struck me as strange. The second thing that caught my eye was a different study. This one's fairly new. It comes out of Australia. And this study looked at the impact of motor vehicle and infrastructure on passing distance. So it looked at the way cars pass bikes depending on the infrastructure on the road. Of all the things they looked at, two elements in a street seem to prompt motorists to pass cyclists closer than other things. And those two things were parked cars and on-road painted bicycle lanes. So yeah, the painted bike lane saw motorists pass more closely than other types of infrastructure, including nothing at all. So this is two things that made me question, what's the point of a bike lane? I mean, this is kind of bizarre, right? These things are supposed to help cyclists. I've been thinking about this and I had an idea to do a little experiment of my own. Not scientific as those, not scientific at all actually. But basically what I did was strap a camera onto my bike during one of my days of commuting to work and record the ride and see how cars pass me in different types of infrastructure. And I thought we could go through them and take a look. So let's do that. Here we go. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every moment of my bike commute because that's super boring, but basically what I did was cut down the instances when cars passed me. So we'll look at them first. First, I want to look at regular streets. So these are just regular streets, mostly residential streets, no bike infrastructure at all. And here we go, let's see. See, here's me riding. There's a SUV passing me. That's fine, there was enough distance there. Nothing too crazy about that. Here's another instance, and this one caught my eye. Look at that. Look at the passing distance there. This person gave me like 3 meters. This is a wonderful motorist, either that or a cyclist who happens to be driving a car. But yeah, look at all that space. I mean, that feels really good on a regular street. All right, here's another one. This gets a little bit more interesting. See, there I am passing a parked car. And remember, parked cars are one of those elements that encourage people to pass closely. And look at that, a car came really close to me right there. And that was pretty tight. So that's interesting. Still a residential road. I mean, I didn't feel dangerous at all, but still pretty tight. This is interesting as well. This is another residential road in a more urban environment. You can see there's lots of cyclists on this street, and this street is actually pretty narrow. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how cars pass me on this narrow street. And this is good because you can see this guy in front of me. And here comes a car, you know, look at the distance there. That's not bad, I'd say. That's, you know, I think sort of the minimum distance for passing is a meter. Some jurisdictions have laws that specify you must be a meter away. For my American friends, what's a meter? Like 2.5 feet, something like that? I don't know. Look it up. Anyway, that's not bad. I think this motorist is doing a pretty good job. And you can see they actually crossed the yellow line a little bit. It was safe to do so. I think that's the right thing to do to give enough space to the cyclist. So not bad, right? That's not bad at all. And I think I've got one more too. This one's interesting because this is the same road, but it rounds a corner right here and things kind of get squeezed a little bit. And I find this part very dangerous too. And you can see like with here though, because there's not enough room, this motorist actually slowed down and let the cyclist go ahead and then sped up and passed them with enough distance between them. So hurrah, motorists, good job. You felt generally pretty safe in those situations. Interesting, right? Good. So that was bike lane, or that was roads with no bike infrastructure at all. Okay, next up we're going to look at some of the painted bike lanes I rode on. So this is just a strip of paint on the asphalt, and let's see what we get. So this is a bike lane I take on my way to work every day. It's pretty narrow. Oh, there goes a car. Not bad. There's enough distance there. I think that felt pretty good. Oh, nice Porsche. Usually it's the Porsches who pass you really closely. But that was pretty good. Actually, it's not bad. Not bad at all right there. So this is later in the day. This is on the opposite side of the street on my way home. There's a bit more traffic now. So you can see, there's enough space there. Again, not too bad, just like the other way. I'd say so far on both roads and painted bike lanes, things feel pretty good. Hurrah, Calgary motorists. I disparage you guys all the time, but you're proving me wrong today. Good work. But, oh, here comes a Jeep. See, that one's getting a little tighter right there, right? I would say it's not unsafe, but it's getting closer. It's probably closer than that 1 meter. I mean, this is just me looking at it. I don't know exactly how far it was, but I remember feeling that one was a little tight. Here we go more. There's another one that's not bad. So far so good. And here's one. Here's a big truck, and look at that. That's definitely too close. You can see the wheels there just outside the other side of the bike lane. And I felt this one too. It's very close. So I think this is the problem. And look at, you can see up ahead here, I think, yeah, they even cross into the bike lane a little bit too. I'm not trying to shame any motorists. That's a big vehicle in a small lane. I mean, maybe they just have bad judgment. Maybe they weren't trying to hurt me. Here's another one. See, again, there, that's pretty tight. See, it's interesting, right? Like, out of all of the passings, I would say this is reflective of the data. That painted lane, they were pretty close on those bike lanes. I mean, there wasn't a lot of incidents. Most passing motorists were pretty good, but definitely there were some close moments there too. And I can see why. If you think about it, that painted lane is almost like this psychological barrier, whereas when there's nothing, it's up to the motorist to sort of use their judgment. So, most people don't want to kill someone on a bike, so they give a wide berth. But when that barrier is there, or at least the psychological barrier, an artificial or a visual barrier, they do seem to get a little bit closer. They feel like, that's the cyclist space, this is the motorist space. And they maybe don't feel like they need to move around, or they should move around. This is interesting. I'm not blaming motorists specifically, although there's always dicks out there. But I just find it interesting that the infrastructure almost encourages close calls in this case. Okay, just for fun now, I thought I would look at a third type of bike infrastructure, which is the separated bike lane. And let's take a look how closely vehicles can pass. So as you can see, it's not even an issue in this case, because there's so much space between the bike lane and the car. And there's a barrier. There's a pole in the middle, so you're not going to see a lot of people, coming that close. It's not even an issue in this situation. I felt much safer in a separated bike lane like this than any other type when I was riding. Okay, on to the next one. This is a little bit different. You can see this one has a concrete barrier separating them. And look at me. This is a one-way traffic street, and this with a two-way bike lane, and I'm on the inside lane. So in this case, it's like almost laughable that you would think about it, because cars aren't passing me. They're like 10 or 15 feet away from me. And look at it, you can see all the bike traffic here as well. This is the safest of all. I'm not even coming close to vehicles in this case, so it's barely even an issue. So there you go, separated bike lanes, a totally different scenario, totally different feel. And when you're riding, you can just feel it. It just feels different. You're not coming close to cars, you just feel safe. And so there was one day of commuting for me. And what did I think? I think maybe all of that research is true, at least from this commute. On a street with no infrastructure at all, there's lots of vehicles, gave me lots of space. When there were parked cars there, things did get a little bit tighter. And then compared to a cycle track, which I felt completely safe, like cars were so far away from me, I didn't worry about it at all, which is interesting. But then in the painted bike lane, which is when I had the most close calls, which also reflects the research that I told you about earlier. So it's really interesting to think that a bike lane painted for people actually may make your commute more dangerous. And maybe it's not a surprise, because most cyclists already perceive painted bike lanes as not being safe. So I guess it comes back to the question at the beginning, do painted bike lanes suck? Yeah, I think they do. The perception is they're dangerous, which means they don't encourage people to ride. And motorists pass more closely in those painted bike lanes. So what's the point? I mean, I'd love to see some data on whether there are more collisions between cars and bicyclists in a painted bike lane. I don't have that data. I don't know if it exists. If you know of it, please let me know. I'd love to see it. But it stands to reason that if there are more close calls in passing, that there probably would be more collisions as well. So, I don't know, the conclusion there is, do we not do painted bike lanes? Maybe if we're going to do bike lanes, we should do them properly. Make them safe so that people are encouraged to use them. Anyway, interesting. If you have any thoughts, please share them with me, or if you have any data that I should look at, I'd love to see it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Be safe out there.